The information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal situation.
To make sure you get the most out of wealth, wine and wisdom, folks, please follow the house rules. Don't be a wallflower, get involved in the chat and enjoy this episode of Wealth, Wine and Wisdom.
Benton.
Witten.
How are you, mate?
Ladies and gents, I hope you're doing super well. Happy Friday, my friend.
Happy Friday to you,
so we can do these ones.
There we go. Across the table, across the table from each other today. There you go. Well, folks, there's a few people in the house, which is awesome. Give us a shout out in the chat if you're around. Love to hear from you. Let us know where you are, because we're in a bit of a different place, Andy.
Right. Somewhere special.
Yeah.
We've come to see how the other half live, getting out of our world and seeing what the rest of the world have to say about what's going on in this crazy universe of ours. So for those of you who don't already know or haven't been following us, we'll do a quick intro to the show, but we're coming to you from a very, very special place for a very, very special reason. So we've got a few of you dialing in at the moment. It's good to see you guys. Chris, great to see you. It's not quite evening for us just yet, but evening to you, Chris. D, great to see you on. As always, working away from the Gold Coast. We've got Mick from Merimbula. I love Merimbula. I used to go fishing there as a kid.
Good to see you, Mick.
Beautiful place in the world.
Yep.
Jeffson, Malaysia. Yes, mate. That's where we're coming in from. So as we're doing that, as everyone's dialing in, make sure you grab something to have a drink with us, whether it's a water, whether it's a wine, whatever is tickling your fancy.
We're doing the combination at the moment. It's a little bit early for our usual drinking time, which is 2:00 in Malaysia. But hey,
it's a
really
Friday.
It's really 4:00 in Australia. So there you go. I'll have some water first.
So for those of you who are dialing in for the first time, Wealth, Wine and Wisdom, this is your compass, your clarity. This is the place that Jason and I take a little bit of time each week to debrief the week and have a look at what's been going on in the media, what's been going on in the world, and try and make some sense out of the madness at times and the hysterical clickbait journalism. We started this back in COVID times where legislation was going wild. They were dropping something new every week. Nobody knew what was going on, and we went live every week to try and decipher the madness, bring some clarity and some facts to nobody cares about facts these days. The media don't care about it, but ultimately give you some clarity of what's happening in the world of business, what's happening in the world of investing, where are the opportunities, what are the risks, and what do you need to know about. And today or tonight, we're coming to you from the amazing KL, Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Hopefully I said that right. We've had a few Americans that we've been hanging out with recently, so saying things slightly differently. But we're out here. We wanted to come and see how the rest of the world are viewing, the rest of the world and what's happening. We're here with the nomad capitalist who is famous, perhaps even infamous when it comes to governments, in helping people live in different places around the world for different reasons. So we'll probably share a little bit of that with you, because you might think that the nomad capitalist is all about helping people just find tax havens and learn how to pay less tax, but it couldn't be further from the truth. So, team, that's a little bit about why we're here.
Take off the chat off the screen, Andy. But there you go, folks. Last night we XRP. Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it, Jeff? Those ideas when it comes to assets, where it comes to where you pay tax and where you live and lifestyle and all sorts of stuff is a really interesting conversation. Lots of chats, lots of conversations here in KL, Malaysia, about that very thing. And that's us dressed up last night for our little James Bond scene last night, and hearing from Steve Wozniak, which was quite kind of cool, and hearing about many different people from walks of life working out what's going on. How are they going to treat themselves, their investments, their lifestyle into the future? And certainly some realizations, Andy, I think, for me. And And you and I have been chatting about it for a couple of days now. But there's some very different things, but there's a lot of the same things, really, at the end of the day, which is quite interesting. And one of the sort of the takeaways for me is that, there's every country around the world, you're playing the same game. You're playing the game of exchanging time for money, ideas for wealth, creating a life for yourself and your family, protecting your legacy, paying the right amount of tax, not too much tax, making sure your assets are protected. Those are the same conversations we've had for 25 years in our industries, and we continue to have with our clients, and some eye openers, and some confirmations. We're barking up the right tree, or we're heading down the right track. Maybe not barking up the right tree, heading down the right track when it comes to the world of business, the world of managing your wealth, the world of
managing
tax
risk,
planning, managing risk, those sorts of things. Now, I can't see any of the chat. Something's gone wrong here today, so Andy's got to run the whole show, which I'm very nervous about because I'm a bit of a control freak.
You can see it in his face, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm totally out of control here today because fucking Fenton has the controls, and I'm like, shit, what is going to go on? But anyway, we will soldier on. Andy, I want to start with one piece, the big takeaway for me, and then I'm going to throw to you for your takeaways. So let's just bring it into one perspective. We've traveled to Malaysia to hear from the Nomad Capitalist Company. They specialize in helping people move it to different places around the world for lifestyle, for tax treatment, for flexibility, for protection, whatever it might be.
One of their mottos is "Move where you're treated best."
Best,
yeah. The theme of the conference. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So put it in the chat. I won't bloody see it, but put it in the chat, folks. What is the number one expense for most people? There's two large expenses in our world for most of us, but for most working-aged Australians, what's the number one expense that we are part of? No matter where you live in the world, what do we get the pleasure doing? All right, what do we get the pleasure doing around the world? Tax, indeed.
Courtney's onto it.
Yeah. And then the next one for most of us is housing, right?
There's a few extra X's there. You must have been watching the news. Jeff's onto it. Oh, hang on.
Yeah. Well. So housing. So you either pay a mortgage or you pay rent. Children, they're pretty they're pretty expensive. You did right. There's probably.
I think it's getting a bit out of control here.
Well, Mick, let me be more specific about that. Let's say a divorce is more expensive than having a partner. So take care of yourselves, either your husband or your wife or you both of you. PAYG variation tax. Yes. So this is the game we're playing, right? So I saw this great analogy. I loved it. I'm going to use it from here on. I'm nicking it. It's not mine, but I really enjoyed this analysis of this idea that in most countries, there's two games of tax you can play. And if you think about a board, let's say the board we're looking at, what game is on the screen, folks? Put that one in the chat. Which game is on the screen, or name both of the games on the screen when it comes to what you can see here, which what I'm sharing. But
got some stories here, mate. Been there, Mick. Unfortunately,
been there too,
and there's been a few casualties to it, but we can't help you with that one, unfortunately, other than to choose wisely.
Onwards and upwards,
mate. While they're looking at it, here we go. There it is. D's onto it.
Chess and checkers, right? Yes. So, and this is a really good analogy, and I won't sort of labour on too long. But the idea is that there's two games we're playing, and we're playing on the same board. It's the same environment. Let's say we're in Australia. Let's say that the board is Australia, our economic world that we live in, and there's two games you can play, and depending on how you're playing those games, depending on the flexibility of the moves you can make when it comes to tax and wealth, right? So checkers, this is for those who are in PAYG land, right? You work for someone else, nothing wrong with that. There are many comfortable, wealthy people around the world that work for others, make a bucket load of money and do well.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with PAYG. And the other one is business. All right.
So employee.
So you're employed, or you're an entrepreneur, right? Owner, entrepreneur, whatever it might be. And to be honest, probably up there is investing as well. But both you and I know that investing is where the two worlds meet, right?
Yes.
So as a business owner or entrepreneur or investor, a PAYG, if you invest, then it opens up your ability to manage things, wealth and taxes. Everyone gets an equal playing ground in the investment space. But if you're PAYG, you're exposed to a certain tax regime. And if you're a business, you're exposed to a certain tax regime, benefits, pros and cons. So, in the game of checkers, just like in PAYG land in tax, you only got a few moves you can make. You go sideways, you can go forward, backwards, or jump.
Or
right?
When you purchase something, you go diagonally.
That's it. That's right. Yeah. That's right. So, and then if you get to the end, you can upgrade to a king or something like that. Or
then it can move anywhere, can't it?
It can move anywhere.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's okay. So, yeah, I love this, right? So, it's interesting. So, in the world of checkers, PAYG is like a game of checkers. You've got limited moves, and the rules are pretty straightforward, Andy. Right? We've got some benefits if you do things one way, but the drill is this: you earn your money, so you earn. You
spend.
You pay tax first, and then you get to spend. All right. So that's the PAYG land, and what you and I both know is in our world, in investing, we can help you reduce the earn number in an appropriate legal way on paper, which then reduces the tax number, which then by and large should increase the spend number that you get to either put forward for your investing or use for consumption, let's say. The other one, in business, for some of us, if we structure our businesses right, we can earn, we can then spend. So in some circumstances, if your business is structured right, you can spend or invest. This is the one we love, Andy. Spend or invest with pre-tax dollars. Let's say 30% more money or real dollars if you structure it right. And then afterwards, you pay tax on what's left over.
Yes.
Right? So those are the two games. And it's like, I really like that. The business game is a game of chess. There's lots more maneuvers. There's so many combinations in chess, it's not funny. There's masters of chess and there's punters. But the game of checkers, a lot more straightforward.
Yes.
And sometimes actually, life can be really easy if you just understand the 5 rules. But anyway, that's a big takeaway for me, which I liked, which was kind of like different but the same. It's the same all around the damn world.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. We're all playing the same game, no matter where you go in the world. And it just depends. And I might, I'll talk about this, the world tax system, as my next takeaway in a minute. But that was my takeaway, Andy. It was like, even though there's a lot of interesting different things, there's the two games that you play, no matter where you are in the world, just the same.
Well, I like it from the perspective of, a lot of people, especially when you're business owners, they mesh the two worlds together.
Yes.
And it's like, so you can't do that. You've actually got to play the game of chess and the game of checkers at the same time.
Yeah.
But they're two very, very different games.
Yeah.
Similar rules, because ultimately the game of chess spits out and then you play the game of checkers. And it's a really good way of being able to think about it.
Yeah.
Because as business owners, one of the common traps is, and they also talked about that here as well, which was great, is that if you try and pollute your business world with your personal earnings and affairs, and you don't treat it like a game of chess, you treat your business like a game of checkers, then the protection that's available to you through a company, through a trust, can fast be basically destroyed. So you've got no protection, and all of your assets can be potentially at risk of the ATO or hostile parties or whomever. So we're playing a game of chess in business, and we're playing a game of checkers. And if we're lucky enough to be our own employees, we're playing both games. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So maybe I'll throw over to you, Andy. Is there any sort of takeaway that you wanted to share with everyone?
Courtney, I promise you, it's actually
I've put it in the water bottle, Courtney. You busted me.
So no, these are just some of my notes that I got there. We don't necessarily need to run these up on the screen.
Yeah.
But a couple of my takeaways, because I came to this.
Turn off those.
I came to this thinking, all right, well, ultimately, I'm looking for ways of being able to help clients minimize their taxes and understand what the global system is. But instead, one of the things that seem to be gaining from being here is that, you say a lot of the time, as Australians, we have a very small view of the world. There's 7+ billion people in the planet. We're 26, 27 million, whatever the number is right now. So we're a tiny representation of the globe. And our filters, and me, Jace, I can be a little bit judgy at times, and so this at the very opening, and it was quite hysterical. It was literally at the opening of the Nomad Capitalist. There was this guy who was up there, Mr. Sheets, I think his name was, and probably a good name given the fact that he's got 7 children, spends a bit of time in the sheets, and there's this concept called birth tourism. And,
mind blowing. Yeah.
And, I needed to actually sit down with Jason, debrief this one a little bit, because it freaked me out a little bit. Because conceptually what it is if you have a baby in certain countries in the world, they are automatically a citizen of that place, right? And there's this idea that there are people who legitimately will go over in order to have babies in different places around the world. Now, initially to me, I was like, holy geez, that's pretty messed up. But then when you look a little bit deeper, you go, okay, well, like this person was looking at their family, not just from a today perspective, but from an intergenerational, no matter what happens in the world, my family is taken care of through the schools, the connections in different countries, the ability to be able to move around the world.
Well, we talk about intergenerational wealth, right? So we talk about it all the time. But we're on the sort of the back end.
Yeah, live, love, legacy.
Yeah.
It's part of what we do.
Yeah.
But this guy's talking about legacy on a pharaoh type level, like
international scale,
multi-generational, all around the world. It almost felt a little bit Rothschilds to me.
Well, to put in perspective, so like to give everyone perspective, because it's kind of like jumping in at a conversation where everyone's like, what's he talking about? So the idea, folks, is that Nomad Capitalist says, all right, well, listen, for you to be a little bit safer economically around the world, you might need another country to be able to have a passport of, or be a citizen of, or a tax resident of, right? Just make sure you're not sort of trapped in one country. And if you've got a regime, and Andy and I were like, well, Australia's pretty good. I mean, we're not. And then the chat talked about Venezuela, and and again, that's where that myopic view, I think, comes from, or naive, or maybe innocent view of us living in Australia, because we couldn't even fathom that happening in Australia in reality, right?
And for those of you who don't know the story about Venezuela, the 30-second soundbite is that Venezuela was the sort of the apple of the eye of the world because they were, and still are, extraordinarily resource rich, small country in South America, more oil than at that point the Saudis, and so they literally had the next 200-300 years paved out to be one of the best countries on the face of the planet to go. Amazing amounts of prosperity. And then overnight, effectively, Hugo Chavez, who was the El Presidente at that point in time, moved the chess pieces on the board and effectively took everybody's resources. So closed the bank accounts, seized the bank accounts, and basically said, we're seizing everybody's bank accounts in the name of equality of the nation. So took yours and my money, locked it up, and said, we're now spreading this out in order to make everyone else better. And the reality is it didn't happen that way. But then they went from being one of the strongest countries in the world to probably one of the bottom on the ladder. Inflation went out of control. People lost everything. And this creates this view that it can be a perfect paradise, and then things can go wrong really quickly. And if you didn't have your money in an offshore bank account, that was it. You had no money, and this is what happened.
Yeah, because I mean, this is this is in recent history too. When was that? 20 years ago or something?
25, 30 years ago.
Yeah. So
he was still around when I went kite surfing in Venezuela.
Yeah.
It was basically a third world country.
Another country like that, which was, remind me, was it Argentina or Brazil that took the pension funds?
No, that was Malaysia. That was here.
Was that here?
Yeah.
I thought it was over there. So, Australia, we gripe, and rightly so, because the government should do better. But we gripe. But, at this moment in time, a socialist revolution isn't happening and taking everyone's money in the country, or, the politicians stuff the economy up so badly. Imagine this, folks. Imagine... Well, it's probably not that hard to fucking imagine at the moment.
I reckon there's a few people here who are kind of like, this is going to happen. And we're not down the rabbit hole in conspiracy theory with this by any stretch of the imagination. But like, it's interesting to understand the view of people where these people were their next door neighbours, like a 2-hour plane flight. It's the equivalent of me going to Queensland and Queensland getting locked down. So their perspective on the world and the safety of the world and the political actions of the world are viewed through a very, very different lens to ours. And I reckon, on that side of the equation, it's worth listening to, mate, because it's like, well, they didn't know it was going to happen until it happened. And now that it's happened, they're a little bit suspicious about some of the things that go on.
Totally. Well, I mean, this is the thing. And this is one of the big takeaways for me, is when you leave Australia and you look at other things, other economies, other countries to live in, to do business in, to see as an aspiration, an inspiration, or a warning, or a bit of everything. It's pretty interesting. And you go, oh, the world. I saw this the other day. The world divided into equal parts when it comes to population. It's like
it's wild, isn't it?
It's completely wild. And living in Australia, we complain about our population and immigration right now, and rightly so for many reasons. But we got bugger all people in our country. We do need some taxpayers. There's this kind of dichotomy of conversations.
Yes.
We need some skill in the country. We need some taxpayers in the future. But we don't want to bring in unwanted influences into our country and crime and those sorts of things. So I'm no expert on any of that stuff, at the end of the day. Only an opinion and a very limited one in that space. What I do know is we need skill into the country that we don't have to build our country.
Yes.
Prices of property are going up. It's difficult to construct things.
Yes.
That stuff needs to change, and it's not going to change overnight. It's not going to change with us waiting for you and me, Andy, to have 5 more kids and waiting 20 years or 30 years. We're not having them.
Well, you did. Yeah. You replaced one extra.
I did mine. I did my job. But anyway.
We cancelled each other out. I'm a -1. You're a +1. So we're net neutral.
Yeah. But, another thing is personal tax, income tax rates around the world. So it was really interesting. So, it's like, well, I've got this way of managing decisions in my life. I teach my team, and I talk to you about, Andy. There's lots of things that people say and stats and information, and it's like, right, according to who, check your sources, see if the source of information has any validity, experience, home in reality.
Is it a taxi driver with no experience? Yes.
Yeah.
Friends, fools, or anybody with an opinion.
That's right. According to who, compared to what? Oh, Australia's got high taxes.
Oh.
Well, hang on. Okay, compared to what? Compared to where? Yes, I agree that the tax regime in Australia needs tuning up. I think it needs to be simplified and stop changing every 5 seconds. But is it highly taxed in comparison to the rest of the world? No, it's moderately taxed. It's in the middle. There's a lot of places that have got a lot less taxes, but that comes with some baggage. But, personal tax rates around the world range anywhere from 10 to 50%. There's a few places where there's low to no personal tax rates, but those countries, how do they raise tax revenue? Well, it's in consumption taxes. So, it's like, GST or a VAT or whatever might be 20 or 30% of everything, right? So I'm actually a big fan of that style of taxing personally. I think it would make life easier. But,
Well, that's things moving forward, right?
Yeah. So, personal tax rates and then corporate tax rates around the world, right? So, how you own and earn income from investments or businesses. So again, Andy, it's just these two games. They're the same games that we're playing all around the world. Got a really interesting debrief on the world tax systems. So there's kind of like 4 world tax systems. I'm not going to dive into them deep today. I think I might save them for some of the stuff that we do with our exit planners. But think about this, folks. There's 4 tax systems in the world that every country subscribes to, or multiple. One is tax havens, which is they're slowly but surely being eroded and closed down, and probably rightly so. A lot of them have used for not so great gains and other issues. Territorial tax countries, where they say, all right, well, if you earn money in this country, then you've got to pay the appropriate tax. If you earn money offshore, it's who cares? It's like it didn't happen in our jurisdiction. It's not of any relevance to our country. So you might have a company in another country. It pays its corporate tax. You get a dividend, rightly so, after you've paid your corporate tax in that country, and it comes to your company, and then you can spend it, no tax, further in the country that you're in. So I like that one. There's a bunch of countries around the world like that. Remittance-based system, where it's like wherever you earn the money, you got to tell everyone and pay appropriate tax on it, which is a little bit less attractive. And then an exemption-based system, where it's like I'm big enough to say, hey, make an exemption. And this is the thing. This is the amazing thing. There are countries around the world shopping around for someone to come in and invest 400 million in their country, and they go, if you bring 400 million, no tax for you. And it's like, because this is the game. This is the next level game, which is awesome to see. But anyway, I thought those things were really interesting, right?
And this is what I think as Australians we don't understand yet.
Yeah.
And the idea is that if you want constant prosperity, if you want a country to be consistently comfortable and amazing how we've had it for the last 30, 40 years, then you need population growth. You need to replace the people that are in there more than just equally, meaning, Jace, when you, man, and our families are no longer here, we need to have replaced those people. And if we haven't done that through birthing people, so if I haven't produced 3 kids, then ultimately the country is going sideways or backwards, and immigration bridges that gap and continues the GDP and the prosperity of the country. That's how it's meant to work. And then when you come and you look at what we've been looking at over the last few days, we've got countries that are literally buying people. Yeah. And they're saying, invest your money here because we need your money and we want your money. And that goes into social infrastructure and various different things, probably just as corrupt as what it is here.
Yeah.
So they're wanting us to come. They're also wanting our productivity, right? So some of them, as you said, they like, come over, pay no taxes, but you'll pay consumption taxes. So you're now bringing people over. But they understand, and they're already established communities, that if they don't grow, they go backwards.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're incentivizing people to come over by saying, hey, listen, you can pay no corporate tax or minimum corporate tax, and you can have all of these incredible benefits. You've got to bring over $500,000 US, $2 million US, $4 million US.
Yeah, it's a way of attracting capital for infrastructure into your country. It's amazing. Like there doesn't seem to be anywhere that doesn't have a personal tax system that either is VAT and consumption or direct personal income tax, or a combination of two. There's nowhere around the world say you come here and pay no taxes as an individual. That's not the bell ringer.
No, it might be a result, but But then there's trade-offs, isn't it? It's like, well, then you've got higher consumption taxes and a higher cost of living.
High cost of living, exactly. So we were talking about Dubai, where there was a 0 income tax rate in Dubai. Well, fantastic, but your cost of living is like pretty high,
And they've got reasonable consumption tax. And they just lifted here we go. They just lifted their corporate tax by 900%.
Yeah. 0% to 9%.
It was 0% and it went up to 9%.
But this is an interesting thing. You and I kind of touched on this the other week, and it was an interesting one. Like, the big problem, when you go, all right, let's tax the rich, and let's be really clear. What some countries are getting wrong is they are taxing business wealth inappropriately. The UK just changed a law which saw the largest exodus of money and wealth out of the UK ever in its history.
Yep.
Right. So, they have billionaires living in London spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year and paying tax on 100 million. I mean, that's still pretty good, right?
I'll miss it when it's gone.
Yeah. So, but because they didn't pay tax on the other 900 million that they earned in oil royalties that were in a company offshore, they said, "Oh, that's it. No, you have to pay tax on that now." So, guess what they did? They're not hanging around getting kicked in the face. So the UK has lost a massive amount of revenue, attractiveness from around the world. Like, it's crazy. So Australia's got a bad reputation like that as well.
A direct one-to-one. So effectively what you're saying is, if I'm a Saudi, right, and I happen to live in London, which many do, and I've got a massive oil company and I earn $400 million, $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
That's what my company profit is.
Yeah.
Now, in the UK, if I brought over 100 million, then you pay tax.
Pay tax.
Million.
If the money comes into the country,
not the rest of it.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is they're changing a law that means that they want to tax not just the money that I bring over, but the full 100 million or $500 million that's over there.
Yeah.
And so these people are just gone.
It's like, why wouldn't you? So, it's an interesting one. But, in Australia, this is quite an interesting one. And this is where you and I do a lot of work with our clients, Andy. The number of millionaires keeps on rising. Australia's right up there, folks, as a percentage of population. You have a look at our, our run rate, not too bad with the rest of the world, other than sort of China and the US. They've really cranked along, but not too bad. But let's face it, there's probably only one asset in Australia that's delivering most of that wealth for Australians, and what is it? It's their real estate.
Yeah,
it's their home. Yeah,
It's probably vastly different between now and 4 years ago.
Yeah, totally. So, but Andy, this is the thing. This is one of the sort of the bits that you and I are talking about. When would it be worth it for someone to go, all right, economically, I think it's going to be worth it for me to leave Australia and do something else. And you and I work on
outside of any other reason, just monetarily.
Just monetarily. Just monetarily. And you and I were doing the math. If you follow our plan, folks, ours, I'm borrowing the large credibility of Andy Fenton over there. But the idea that you can create, if you want tax minimised or low to no tax wealth in Australia, especially when you're a bit older, between a couple, $12 million worth of assets, and you can have
it's still very lowly taxed if you structure it the right way.
Lowly taxed. You'd probably on what are we talking? Probably 50% of those assets would be completely tax free, no tax payable on value and income, if structured correctly, in a personal tax sense.
Yes.
And then the other ones, you'd only pay tax at, let's say, a corporate level, but when that money flows to you, no more tax to pay.
Yep.
So, you and I were saying, listen, unless you've got more than 10 mil, the full flee the country is probably not worth it. You can get a similar, if not a better outcome in Australia, staying in Australia.
I would argue probably better, especially when you consider the kind of health system that we have here, and that's a conversation that's been had over the last couple of days as well. We've
like
got
health,
pretty good
lifestyle, tax. And then probably connection to relationships, and how far away you want to be from your family and stuff. And so tax is just not the only reason.
No. Well, it's opportunity, because we've forgotten the Sanjay, who did a presentation. He was from India.
Yeah.
And the one thing that he said, and I've kind of known this from an investment perspective, but just the way he put it is like, if you start a company in India, it'll make money.
Yeah, 1.4 billion people. It's like, if you've got something that's worth selling,
600 million mobile phone users.
Yeah.
600 million. It's just
mind-blowing. Yeah.
And so, you know, they're the opposite to Australia. Like, they don't have to leave their country to create extraordinary amounts of wealth.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, if we really are serious about massive wealth, then you've got to look at China, you've got to look at Asia, you've got to look at India, you've got to look at the States, the major consumers of the world.
Well, like you and I are saying, all right, well, for us, let's say sub $5 million worth of assets. You know, you and I have got a reasonably large amount of clients in the 10 to 50 million. But most of our clients, probably a good 60-70% of that, kind of like $2 to $5 million worth of homes, some investment properties, a good chunk in super.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty tidy. Let's face it. That's in the top 1% of Australians, all Australians. You know, that's significant when you go compared to what? You know, you can get those investment exposures when you're smart, when you know a few things, you know the right people.
Yep.
You don't have to leave the country and invest directly in Africa or India or, you know, other places, or Bitcoin even directly. You can indirectly through an EFT or whatever. So it's really interesting. Like, I love the idea of understanding it all, but then knowing, unless you want to go in a big way, and if you do, awesome, you can still understand what's going on and the mechanism of the world's growth and get a piece of the action.
Yep.
But not necessarily have to go through.
And I think it's
upheaval if you don't want it.
I think it's also misinformation, right? Bad advice. We talk about it a lot. Like, bad relationships cost you a lot of money. Bad advice costs you a fortune. And it was funny, the chap that I introduced you to is a Queenslander.
Yeah.
And I said, so what's your motive for being here? What do you? And he's like, you know, 2 taxed. Once I retire, one out. And, you know, we had a conversation. I said, well, how much assets do you have? And, you know, typical conversation to have over lunch with a stranger. And he told me, and I'm like, what happens if I told you you could have that all tax-free? He snapped my mobile phone number pretty quickly on his phone, but it blew his head, because so he was looking at like literally taking his whole family, moving somewhere else in the world in order to access, you know, better tax conditions where he could actually be tax-free. Yeah. You know, right here, if he was just structured the right way.
Well, here's the other thing. This is the other thing you and I, a lot of these countries. So there's another thing, Andy, lifestyle, right? Lifestyle. So, you know, maybe you're Victorian and you want to move somewhere warmer and you don't like the Queenslanders. I don't know. Maybe you want a bit of lifestyle arbitrage.
Queensland got too much like Shanghai, mate. It was too busy. It's too busy up there.
Too busy. You know, so you can move to places like Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, to name a few, on retirement visas.
Yes, yeah, that's an interesting one.
So that's an interesting one, right? So let's say you've done your stuff in Australia, you've transformed your portfolio into retirement phase and whatever. Well, you can go and live in those places with a visa, and that gives you, depending on the visa, access to ownership as well and other things.
Sometimes you can buy real estate.
Yeah. So you can still live there. If you've sorted your affairs in Australia, you can still live somewhere else. And if your affairs are in retirement phase, literally tax-free anyway, so who gives a shit? Yep. You've got tax-free money, safety in Australia, assets in Australia, but you're living arbitrage lifestyle in maybe a country that
they want the consumption.
It's 2 to 1. Yep. You know, so some real pennies dropping in kind of how you do this stuff. It's
a totally different way of thinking. Yeah. Like just a totally different way.
From age 50, basically from age 50, you know, which for me, it's not a big deal because I'm over 50 already, folks. But for some of you who might be a bit younger, honour retirement visas. Listen, mate, there's some really interesting things for people. And so it doesn't mean you give up Australian citizenship. You don't have to get another passport anywhere. You can live in another country with all the flexibility of the safety with a visa, sometimes 10-year visas. In Malaysia, you've got a 10-year visa. So really interesting. So depending on the country, you know, depending on where you are. So that stuff's eye-opening, and I think really, really empowering for people to know that that is a choice if they want to. Let's say the life that let's say you've got $1 million, Andy. And that's still pretty good for most Aussies in retirement. You got $1 million. $1
million plus your house.
Yeah, $1 million plus your house. That'll see you out pretty well if you do all right. But you know, if you said, all right, well, let's arbitrage that lifestyle a little. Let's move to
Cambodia,
Vietnam, into these areas which are very well infrastructured. Well, you might have double the lifestyle quality there.
Yes.
Double the buying power in food, medical,
Stem cell.
Yeah, stem cell. It's amazing. Anyway, it's a real eye-opener education. So I thought that was
Yes. So
that was good. So
there is a rabbit hole to go down,
Yeah.
but we're not down the rabbit hole. I'd say that we're excavating for gold.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to go down the rabbit hole with this stuff. Like,
don't conspiracy theory it, basically.
No, but there's some real world, totally legitimate reasons to be doing this, from tourism to healthcare to lifestyle arbitrage. And yes, tax and business tax is just one tiny piece of it. But overall, protection was a big theme. And in Australia, we just don't think of things like that because our next door neighbours haven't blown up. So yeah, really interesting team. So more to come as we digest more. We've got a few more days here, and then takes a little bit of time to marinate. But we wanted to share some of the insights of what's been happening over here and what the options are. And so I'll bring more of that as we think about it and think about practically how to apply that.
Yeah, that's our job. That's what we do. We love doing it and sharing it with you guys.
So
shall we change gears and look back to our own shores to see what's going on, Andy?
We'll go back to what Sammy calls wealth, wine, and whinging. And we have promised to come up with some solutions, and we'll do that maybe next week or the week after. But I wanted to illuminate some things here, and I'll just bring up my slides here, because many of you guys will have heard about this, and I am going to have a little bit of a rant, but there was First Guardian and Shield Master Trust. Now, it's been all over the news in Australia, and for good reason. You know, there's $1.2 billion worth of investor funds that's gone missing. Right?
Out of where? People's super, right? These
People's superannuation funds.
Yeah. This is ludicrous.
Now, like allegedly, if this is like many of the ones that have happened in the past, then there's been something dodgy that's happened up the top, right? And so this is another example of where the watchdog is asleep at the wheel. So the watchdog is ASIC, ladies and gentlemen. And so do you think they go, oh, well, Shield Guardian, blowing up, let's put the directors into jail. Like, let's go hard at them. Let's make them accountable. Let's make sure that nobody thinks about doing anything like this ever again. If they've stolen money, let's figure out that they've stolen money and let's lock these pricks up. Now, and I'm saying if, because none of this has come through yet, but this has happened so many times in the past. So, but who do they start to look at, Jace? Do they say, listen, we're going to go after these guys, and if they've done something wrong, they're in jail, and we're going to set an example so that nobody thinks about doing this in the Australian financial system ever again? Like that's what I'd expect a watchdog to do.
Yeah.
Well, a guard dog doesn't go up to the criminal, all right, who's about to rob your house and just sort of snip at your leg and sort of say, who sent you? Like, is there a driver of the car that I should be barking at? No, they tear you to shreds. And this is exactly what should happen. But it's not what happened, Jace. Let's have a look at what the headlines have been saying. First one, 140 advisors in ASIC's crosshairs over Shield First Guardian. So they've gone down to the distribution network, right? So instead of going to the what are they called? Instead of going to the drug lord themselves, right? They've gone to chop up the drug dealers, right? And I reckon probably there's some accountability.
I don't know if you should be connecting drug lord and drug dealers, mate, because I think the advisors downstream are not drug dealers.
I'm trying to think of the example of like the mafia.
Well, I mean, and the advisors expect the system that they're licensed under to do the research on the products, and the products get put on an approved panel, for crying out loud. Right, well, how can you blame an advisor for choosing something on an approved panel who approved it in the first place?
Well, that's the second place that they're looking at blaming. So the trustees had plenty of reasons to decline problematic funds, and this is ASIC going, okay, so firstly, let's target the advisors because they must have done something wrong.
Because they're small and we can beat them up and bully them.
Yep.
That's what they did last time.
And we can attack their insurance premiums.
Yeah.
And then they've gone, oh, well, there's other people. So the trustees, okay, let's go for the trustees as well. So let's penalise the trustees. And my point here is, like, when you have disasters like this, and I can name a few off the top of my head. There was Keble, there was West Point, there was the total agribusiness scheme. There was a few more that'll come to me. So Keble and West Point, major property group, WA, ran off with money. Prime Retirement Trust, listing company, proven in some cases to have done very, very fraudulent activities, right? There was a beautiful one with that one where the auditors came out with a no admission of guilt, but a $300 million payout on this one as well back in the past. My point being is that instead of going and locking these people up who have done it, right, who have done the bad deed, instead of pulling the trigger at them and saying, hey, let's set an example here. We won't have this shit happen not on our watch. We're the watchdogs. So you do the wrong thing and we will napalm you. They go, oh no, you've done the wrong thing, but we will napalm everybody downstream from you. Not where the actual crime happens, but they will look to then everybody else downstream from it.
Well, they see downstream, they're all perpetrators, rather than, hang on, I would say in my world, you and I have had this experience, let's say as an advisor or a downstream, product referrer of products and layer up, like you're a victim as well. You're told a whole bunch of shit, given all of the paperwork and all of the compliance stuff, and it all fits.
Yes.
You go, great, this is the best thing for my client.
Yes.
If these returns are great, absolutely. It's fucking 5-star and rated and all sorts of stuff. Like, you're a victim of their either ineptitude, dishonest, like it's bullshit.
Well, and so this is the last one. Now they're looking at the auditors. And it's like, and here's what I think, and this is just an opinion. I think that ultimately what they go, it's too hard to go for the big guys because their lawyers are good, right? So we'll do is we'll go to people who cannot represent themselves, who are, and every step further away, the accountability and if there's criminal activity, the amount of that as it goes downstream lessens and lessens and even diminishes to zero criminal activity.
Yeah.
Right. And in fact, as you said, rightly so, if the trustees have approved it, the research is good, meaning there's independent research houses that have qualified this and said this is a good product, then there's no reason why somebody wouldn't sell it at the end of the day and go, hey, everybody upstream from me said this thing is amazing.
Yeah.
Right. But ultimately, my point is, the people at the head, you chop the head off the snake. Yeah. Right. But you don't see any headlines here saying, ASIC looking to line these guys up and, put them in jail, cancel their passports and things of that nature. No, it's everybody else who gets a shit name from it. Yeah. And I'm sick of it. I like the watchdog should make an example of the people who do these behaviors and should chop their head off and not literally, of course, but ultimately finish it there. Because imagine that you go, last time this happened and the directors of the company who were proved to have stolen money, and I'm not saying that's happened here, but it's looking like that, proven to have stolen money, that's it, jail. Yeah. Bang. You're gone. Yeah. Maximum security, like with next to Bubba. Like that's what I'm talking about.
I mean, if you ever want to see, what's a couple of those movies, US style version of those ones, like not Wolf of Wall Street, the Bernie Madoff story, the Madoff. It's actually a Netflix.
I haven't watched this one.
It's crazy. Like it's just like he was just lying to everyone, and he, in the end, it's crazy.
Yeah, but Jeff, 100% right.
Yeah. The downstream issue though, Andy, like you and I have been wound up about this a heap of times. The APRA wind up bullshit ages ago. Yes, there was some shit players, but instead of just doing the work to get the shit players, they just torched everyone.
Point the finger. Yep. Chase ghosts. Yep. Create legislation that blows the whole system up. Yep. And they created a responsible lending platform, which basically was the ability for the banks to charge an extra 1% on investment lines.
Mate, just like the banks got wealthier, the banks just booked fucking record profits. All of their competition just got rid of.
It's like this. Hey, banks, it's irresponsible lending, so we don't want you to do it anymore. So what we want you to do is get another 1% for investment loans and charge an extra 1% on investment loans. Well, banks said, we understand. We're very, very sorry. Thank you for putting another.
Well, you and I know this. The banks aren't even under the same responsible lending legislation. They don't even have to do what's right for the customer. They don't. Banks are not under the legislation to do the right loan for the customer. If you're sitting in the ANZ, you are not legally bound to go, no, there's a better loan at Countrywide Bank. You should go do that one. As a broker, if you don't do that, you will get fined, and you could potentially lose your license.
Yeah.
But
And
a bank,
sometimes it's even if it's not the very best.
but a
It's
bank
like-
doesn't have to. It's madness. And then that APRA bullshit. 50% of advisors left the industry. Probably a good 10% should have been chased out.
Pushed up the cost of advice.
1 million less Aussies get advice today, and it's double the cost of average advice, because an advisor, why would they risk their whole entire life for a very little return? It's madness. So,
And guess who pays the watchdog?
yeah,
The advisors.
Yeah,
The advisors, which then goes on to the clients.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's close to $2,000 an advisor now, just as an additional levy in order to support the activity where they hang us rather than going for the people who actually cause the issues.
Nah.
So pissed off. So that led me to the pollies. And I saw this while I was actually over here. And I'm not sure if you've seen it, Jace.
Take off the.
Oh, sorry. There you go. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but you guys might have seen it. I literally saw this headline: $40 billion annual disaster bill. Government details cost of climate change. And I was like, what? What? And mate, you read into this, right? And they're saying, sea levels are going to rise, people are going to die because the temperature increases. Like this wild stuff, mate. This wild claims are in this report. And they're justifying this report. Interesting, the timing of the report, isn't it? Interesting, while they're copping so much heat on net zero, all of a sudden this climate report comes out and says that it's going to cost us billions of dollars.
Out of the woodwork.
So just riddle me this, right? We've got some of the largest coal deposits in the world. We are not the largest emissions by any stretch of the imagination, yet we're targeting net zero. We've got an energy cost crisis, right? So energy is costing us ridiculous amount of money. If we burn coal, we reduce the cost of electricity until we get the green energy right. And to me, that makes sense. Use the coal until the green works, and then slowly decommission the coal once the green's proven to be working without subsidy, right? Now, people might disagree with me on that, and they might say, no, we don't want to be doing that. Well, here's the fucking reality, mate, is we're shipping the shit off. So now China, the US, and every other country that buys our coal and our gas has cheaper energy prices because they're burning it. And so global emissions, of which we're not a considerable player, they're going through the roof. So we're the ones who aren't burning it. We're the ones with the resources, yet we should be we should have the cheapest energy prices in the world, where we've got one of the most expensive energy in the world. Like, it's absolutely insane. And so you keep looking down, you go, okay, well, there's jobs now coming offline. So there's ANZ, Westpac, I think have been about 4,000 a pop on each of them. You go further across and you go, well, climate inaction will cost us 1.2 trillion. Now, I'd love to see which arsehole they pulled that out of, because that number is outrageous. And then that justifies this action. Labor pours another $1 billion into green fuels as climate targets loom. This is all propaganda that's being put out there in order to be able to justify a ridiculous policy, a ridiculous spend, which none of the rest of the world are following, which is costing Australians an absolute fortune, while less people are employed, costs are going up. So instead of actually targeting things that are useful, we've got Jacinta Allen trying to introduce policies that relate to native Australians into Parliament that actually creates a segregation of classes. It says, you have a special class, not equality. That's not equality. It means you're special and we're not, right? And whether that's right or not, it's the reverse of equality, right? It's creating a special group of people.
Well, I mean, we had the referendum. Everyone said no. Like, I mean, move on with their lives. Like,
so I thought the people had to vote on these things. Clearly not. They're just going to pass a policy.
Well, that's Labor for you, isn't it?
They're pouring more money into green. And mate, this is the thing, that this is what people need to be looking at. And this is what young people need to be looking at as well. Because if you're not careful, so this is the unemployment rate, and it's rising, and it should rise, right? There's a natural rate where this
around 4 to 5% is kind of like a normal rate, right?
It creates it's like rental.
Yeah.
It's never going to be zero because there's always going to be people changing jobs, moving in and out of houses, and things of that nature, right? So 4 to 5% is a reasonable rate, but this is a pretty steady increase, right? And we have got some headwinds like AI, which is going to create some disruption. So instead of focusing on policies that's going to reduce the cost of living, right? Because ultimately now my business spends more on power, more on resources, more on compliance, more, not based on anything that's not in control of the government, largely government control.
Yeah.
We're spending more, which means we've got less money to employ people with. And as a result, this number is going to keep rising. And now with things like artificial intelligence, business will be looking at that because they're going, we can't afford this continual cost increase. So if we're not very careful and we're not careful about how we vote and the choices that we make, these numbers could rise rapidly in the future.
So you're thinking that it might be a bit more inflationary at this point in time, is the kind of a little bit of a...
Oh, you look, I can almost guarantee you they'll adjust the CPI figures. They'll adjust the basket of goods and how
they'll adjust the basket of goods and go, hang on.
It's not as bad as what we thought it was.
We've taken electricity out and houses out because that was messing up our inflation.
Oh, well, housing's expensive. So let's just give everybody a 5%, free kick and then housing prices goes up. Let's give everybody a power subsidy and power prices go up. It's just garbage. It's absolute garbage. And it's got to stop, mate. And my point with this is that there's too much of the government going, hey, look at this. And I legitimately think it's a distractionary tactic.
Well,
let's create conflict over here. So everyone starts arguing about this. Yeah. So they won't notice that we're not actually doing anything productive for business, for lowering the cost of living or anything like that.
Well, I fail to see how any of these policies are going to really deal with the big issues that we have. Cost of living, the inability for, let's say, the next 20 years of young people being able to buy their own homes. If you're already in, then you're like, oh, what? Let's stop complaining. What's your fucking problem, right? But if you're a young person right now, let's say between the ages of sort of 20 and 30 or 20 and 40, it's a pretty dire thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I moved 150 kilometers to buy my first house from where I was living, right? So I think there's a little bit of entitlement where it's like, oh, I want to live in Bondi. I don't want to move. I think that's bullshit. I think they should, pull their heads out of their asses.
100%.
However, when I moved, the thing in Bondi was worth $1 million. And I could go to the Blue Mountains and buy a house for $120,000, and that's what I did. But now, it's $1 million in the Blue Mountains. But the government has to solve that. The government has to make housing affordable. It needs to take on the unions. It needs to take on construction. It needs to take on some density issues. Yep. It needs to sort that shit out because that's the only way young people are going to see a future.
Yep.
Because in this conference we're in, there's a bunch of young people here going, fuck Australia. They just treat me like shit. I could move somewhere else with my 2 decades of hard work and be further ahead in my life.
Miles.
Yeah.
And be treated better.
Yeah. So,
the global village. I mean, that's a big eye opener of being here is that it really is a global village. There's options.
There's options indeed. Well, I've got one last one here, Andy, before we sort of wind up shop tonight. But I think there's going to be some pretty good stuff that we can dive deep into when we return, especially if you're coming to Exit Plan, folks. If you haven't booked your tickets yet, get onto it. We want to see you all there for this one. We're going to come in hot and heavy when it comes to what we've learnt over here at Nomad Capital. But I thought I'd bring this one because this is an interesting one, Andy.
I have to give Jeff a quick shout out.
Hey, Jeff.
Because Jeff, of course, we shouldn't allow Australians to become rich by buying property. We should allow super funds to become rich by owning the property and BlackRock, because BlackRock and CBUS and all the industry funds, they're the ones who really need the money. So we should give them special entitlements so that they can build houses for us and so that we can never own anything.
Let's reduce the tax for the corporate billionaires, but let's increase the tax for the
Joe Everybody's.
The Joe Everybody's. Yeah,
I totally agree. That's great policy.
That's Labor. Yep. That's Labor. It's moronic. But listen.
What have you got here?
So this is an interesting one, and I've got 2 things here based on your corporate watchdog failure. All right. So, again, where are the regulators on this one? Lion Property Group. Now, these guys were around 4 or 5 years ago. And I would see their ads on Facebook. They were advertising on Facebook, 50% returns, and I was like, bullshit. And I reported their ads, the whole thing. Complete scam.
Just as Jace is going into this team, whack it into the chat. Have you seen these types of ads going around? You're going, come on, they cannot be true. Whack it. Yep, seen the ad, and maybe even what kind of ridiculous returns they're promising.
Less prevalent these days. I think those platforms have tightened up some of those things. But it wasn't ASIC fucking tightening it up. 500 people lost $129 million with an offer, which you and I know, which is really a wholesale offer. Which is sophisticated investor offer, and you and I have a Jekyll and Hyde opinion on that one. One, it's like keep it low because we like it. It's low because we can help our clients. But in reality, it should be a way higher than it is because fuck, everyone's got 2 million these days, even fucking Joe Average, right? So that's an interesting one. But again, a total failure with the regulators. These types of returns, 25, 50%. Yeah, mate, you'll be right. Complete absolute bullshit. And where were the regulators on this one? Another 500 people lost $129 million. Ponzi scheme, they lured me in. Again,
and who's at fault on this? Are they going for the accountants or the auditors or somebody downstream? They're probably looking to point the finger somewhere else.
I'm sure that it will be, the downstream effect is those who invested will get 0 to 1 cent in the dollar. They probably did it under some mechanism that that'll give these guys some modicum of corporate veil protection, because those corporate veils are they can protect genuine people or they can allow non-genuine people to do really shite things. So this is the stuff. Number one, as best as you can, certainly with direct investing, buyer beware. Like if it fucking sounds too good to be true, then it fucking is. I'm telling you that right now.
Oh, mate.
30 years in this game, and if it sounds like, oh, these guys are killing it. We were chatting with someone the other day, 24% fucking, a month on money. And I'm like, oh yeah, right. That sounds like a pyramid scheme. If it's too good to be true, then
probably is.
Yeah. And if it isn't, they can let us know, folks.
Yeah, we're always looking. and look, there are in the wholesale world, like retail world. If you take risk, you're going to be somewhere between 7 and 10% per annum over time. Yeah. Right. If you go into wholesale world and you're willing to understand the investments and you got to be able to have the knowledge or the education, and we spend a lot of time educating people so that they can jump into this world. That's what we do. And I might, if you're interested in starting the journey on that education, there's a QR code up here. I'll be running the Freedom Machine. So scan that now if you want to come along and listen as a business owner or as a sophisticated investor. You can learn some of the rules of the game and maybe further your education in some of the areas that you need to know, so that if you want to, and if you've got it available to you, you can look at some of these wholesale and sophisticated investments that can get you your 10 to 20%, annualized returns, but they come with a risk that you need to be able to understand yourself. So if you want to come along, click, scan the QR code, which is just here, the Freedom Machine. Happy to see you guys there. It'd be good to see some smiling faces from
an hour and a half on a Wednesday night, I think it is.
90 minutes. And we'll dive deep into some of the structural things that you need to know as a business owner and an investor. So come along, scan the QR code. But jumping back, because I slightly went off track in thinking about that, Jace, never have I ever.
Oh, this sounds like a drinking game.
Never have I ever read the headline: corporate watchdog brings down potential Ponzi scheme before it affects somebody. They're not proactive, even though they say that they're proactive and they do all of this work behind the scenes and napalm businesses, and like, never have I ever seen that headline. ASIC gets Ponzi scheme just in the nick of time before they send all the funds offshore. ASIC, manages to through compliance breach, saves investors hundreds of millions of dollars of funds from mismanagement. Never have I ever seen one of those headlines. And if they're spending all of this money and they're doing all of this auditing and they're doing their job like they should, the fucking ATO does. You see plenty of headlines of the ATO getting their money well ahead of things, and sometimes undeservedly getting it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Never have I ever seen that headline. And I'd love to see that headline, because I think that we do need regulation. I think that we are over-regulated, but we do need people genuinely looking out for people. And that system is one that I'd back to the hilt, and I'd be a big fan of. But the proof is in the pudding. And if you don't, you're no good as a cop to come across every you've already been robbed, cops rock up. Okay, great. You've already been killed, cops rock up. Okay, great. Half of the reason that these things exist is that they can police it to stop the thing happening, not just to clean up afterwards.
Yeah.
So anyway, soapbox, but I'm kind of with you, Tim, on the climate change side of the equation.
Yeah.
A volcano could erupt and do the net zero a great deal of harm in one single eruption very, very quickly. I think we deserve better. We need all of these things. We're not saying that you shouldn't pay tax. We're not saying that we shouldn't have regulation. We're not saying any of that stuff. We're just saying that there's a smarter way of being able to manage your structures to protect you. There's a smarter way of managing your tax to protect you. The watchdogs should be proactive and get on top of these things, and rather going for the downstream people, they should be cutting the head of the snake off and making examples of some of these people so that this stuff never happens again. You know, not the poor advisor that sits below multiple layers of people saying this product is fine. It should be right up the top, starting at the top, and then slowly work your way down. That's my take.
And to be honest, the advisors should be part of the compensation of those problems, not necessarily the scapegoat mechanism. Let's face it.
In the industry, before I was an advisor, I must have seen 20, 30 agribusiness projects, 20, 30 of them, right? And every single one of the ones that blew up, every one of them had research reports by multiple research agencies, very reputable ones, all 4 to 5 stars.
Yeah.
And that's not out of 10. That's out of 5.
Yeah. Pay to play. Well, that's it. I mean, Standards and Poor's, we've heard the thing, but there you go, mate. Wealth, Wine and Wisdom done for... Hey, this is our first overseas live one, I think.
It is. Have a look at this in the background. See if I can zoom out here. The amazing, the other way, KL. Beautiful place in the world, beautiful place in space. Learning a lot about the tax system over here and enjoying it. Can't quite see that. Looks better out your side, Jace. But hey, listen, been eye-opening. We've got another couple of days. We'll share more on this platform and also at the Exit Plan, the Freedom Machine. So come along, stay tuned. There's still a hell of a lot more that we've got to learn, digest, figure out how to apply in the world. But it's been a good week so far. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us in Kuala Lumpur at the Nomad Capitalist Debrief of the week.
Yes.
We'll see you back on Terra Firma Australia next Friday.
Take care, folks. It's a good night from him.
And it's a good night from him.